The IMF and the World Bank have raised alarms on the growing debt crisis gripping global economies. With a record national debt of $36 trillion, the U.S. is confronted with a debt catastrophe. Trump faces a major debt risk as he returns to the White House. Our next report telling you more as we decode if America is heading for bankruptcy. Take a look.
America's debt to GDP ratio is poised to surpass 200%, threatening the economy from the increasing debt load. Trump's proposal to reduce government spending is significant for the nation's economic future. The president-elect's plan is being spearheaded by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy under DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. This strategy could encounter obstacles as a result of increasing interest rates and the expenses of debt servicing. With a $2 trillion rise in 2024 alone, the United States national debt has hit a new high of $36 trillion. Since a large chunk of the budget goes towards paying off debt, it is a huge roadblock to Trump's lofty policy objectives. The United States debt has increased at an exponential rate, from $5.7 trillion at the beginning of the century to $23.2 trillion by 2020. A record-breaking rise of over $16 trillion since the COVID-19 pandemic has added to those woes. An average American now shoulders a debt burden of about $108,000. With the US debt exceeding 125% of the country's GDP, the situation is deteriorating rapidly. Experts predict the US debt to GDP ratio will reach 200% in the next few years. Other top economies face a similar threat. Japan is the other major economy with a high ratio. The ratio for Japan is nearly 170%. However, Japanese debt is held by domestic investors, lowering the risks somewhat. In Europe, Italy and France have the highest debt to GDP ratio of over 130%. Germany has the least in the region at about 47%, and the United Kingdom's ratio is over 100%. India and China have lower ratios relative to their developed peers. India's debt to GDP ratio stands at a touch over 80%, while China's is a little more than 90%. As the global debt surged to a record $323 trillion by the third quarter of 2024, the risks associated with sovereign debt are rising. The biggest threat is to emerging markets, which face the reality of a financial crisis. Global interest payments have also increased to a record of about 4 times surge over the last decade. While the debt is alarming, some economists argue that it doesn't necessarily need to be paid off. They point out that unlike individuals, governments don't have to close their debt. Instead, they can issue new bonds to pay off old ones, essentially rolling over the debt. As long as the debt grows in line with economic output and tax revenues, it can be sustained. However, soaring debt payments squeeze budgets for health and education. As seen in recent years, financial crisis and debt default threats are also a real risk. Future generations may face higher taxes or reduced services to manage the fiscal imbalances. Business Bureau, Beyond World is One.